Imagine a single operation so vast that it shook cartel networks across multiple U.S. states, resulted in over 1,000 arrests, and led to the confiscation of more than 90 tons of illegal drugs, enough to fill over a dozen shipping containers. This is not fiction. This is one of the largest and most coordinated cartel crackdowns in recent memory. And today, we're peeling back every layer of this unprecedented law enforcement effort. To fully understand the magnitude of this crackdown, we need to go back and grasp why cartels, especially the Mexican cartels like the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, have become such dominant players in the global drug trade. For decades, these organizations have grown from regional trafficking groups into transnational criminal empires, controlling distribution networks that span continents and involving drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl. Fentanyl, in particular, has reshaped the landscape of the drug crisis in the United States. This synthetic opioid is 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine, and has been flooding streets across the country, leading to tens of thousands of overdose deaths each year. Today's cartel crackdown was part of a larger law enforcement push to stop these deadly flows. So, how did this massive operation unfold? In early 2026, federal, state, and local authorities initiated a coordinated enforcement effort spanning 43 days. The result? More than 1,041 alleged members of the Sinaloa Cartel were arrested, alongside another 856 suspects tied to the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known as CDNG, in a multi-state sweep. These arrests represent one of the most significant crackdowns on cartel activity within the U.S. in decades. Authorities focused on networks implicated in drug distribution, trafficking, money laundering, and violent crime, systematically dismantling key logistical hubs and arresting suspects in diverse locales from border cities to inland communities. Now, let's talk about the numbers, because they are staggering. In total, law enforcement confiscated more than 90 tons of illegal drugs during this sweep. That includes massive quantities of cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and other substances destined for distribution on U.S. streets. To put that into perspective, 90 tons of drugs is roughly the weight of 15 African elephants, or enough to fill a large shipping container many times over. This haul dwarfs most individual drug seizures ever reported in the U.S. But the weight alone doesn't tell the whole story. Behind these numbers are networks, complex supply chains that stretch from production labs in Central and South America across borders and into cities and towns throughout the United States. Each shipment represented hundreds, if not thousands, of potential addictions prevented and lives potentially saved. Such a large operation doesn't happen in isolation. Dozens of U.S. agencies work together, from the Drug Enforcement Administration, DA, to local police departments, federal prosecutors, and task forces coordinating intelligence. The DEA has been ramping up enforcement efforts year after year. In past operations like the targeted DEA crackdowns on Sinaloa networks that seize large amounts of fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and arrest hundreds of suspects in concentrated surges, pressure has only increased on cartel supply chains. The intelligence work that precedes an operation like this is staggering. Weeks and months of surveillance, undercover work, financial tracking, and cooperation with international agencies goes into piecing together cartel hierarchies and supply routes. Once the operation begins, it becomes a high-stakes chess match, law enforcement positioning, cartels scrambling to communicate and respond. To understand why cartels have been so hard to dismantle, we need to look at how they operate. Cartel operations are multi-layered enterprises, functioning like businesses in some ways, with their own production, logistics, finance, and distribution divisions. Production and sourcing, raw materials, and synthesized drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl are produced in hidden labs, sometimes in Mexico, sometimes in precursor chemical manufacturing hubs in Asia. Transport and importation. Drugs are moved over land, sea, and air. Cartels use everything from tunnels beneath U.S. border checkpoints to hidden compartments in commercial freight, boats, and even drones. Distribution networks. Once inside the country, local dealers and mid-level traffickers take over, dispersing product to street-level sellers. Money laundering and finance. Hundreds of millions of dollars move through shell companies, real estate, cryptocurrencies, and corrupt officials or business fronts. This decentralized model makes it incredibly difficult to cripple these organizations by targeting any single component. That's why a broad, coordinated strike, like the one we're discussing, is essential. But beyond the big numbers and government logistics, there is a human story here. Communities devastated by addiction, families torn apart by loss, and towns struggling with increases in violence linked to drug markets. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, fentanyl and other synthetic opioids are among the leading causes of overdose deaths in the U.S., disproportionately affecting young people in communities with limited access to addiction services. So the arrests are made. What happens next? Every individual arrested as part of this sweep will go through the U.S. criminal justice process. Some will be charged federally, facing years, if not decades, behind bars. Others may face state prosecutions. Prosecutors will aim to dismantle networks by targeting not only low-level foot soldiers, but also the organizers and financial overseers who make the drug distribution possible. However, legal experts agree that simply arresting individuals is rarely enough. Long-term strategies focusing on community investment, education, border controls, and international cooperation are equally vital. This operation wasn't an isolated victory in a vacuum. It's part of a global effort to disrupt international drug trafficking networks. International law enforcement agencies regularly coordinate massive drug busts and seizures. In 2022, for example, a worldwide operation led to the arrest of over 1,300 suspects and seizures of precursor chemicals and illicit drugs in 22 countries, revealing just how ubiquitous the problem is. Cartels don't operate in isolation, and neither do the forces fighting them. From Interpol to U.S. federal task forces and foreign security agencies, the effort to cut off the world's drug supply is truly international. While the arrests and seizures represent a significant blow against organized crime, experts caution that the war against cartels, like the drug trade itself, is far from over. Cartels adapt. They evolve. When routes are cut off in one area, they find another. They change methods, innovate, and attempt to exploit weak systems. So every seizure, every arrest has to be understood as part of a larger ongoing struggle. Not the end of the story, but a chapter in it. In the end, this massive cartel sweep, 1,000 plus people arrested and 90 plus tons of illegal drugs taken off the streets, stands as one of the most ambitious law enforcement efforts in recent U.S. history. It's a testament to what coordinated action can achieve, but also a reminder of how vast, resilient, and troubling the global drug trade remains. If you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more deep-dive true crime and investigative stories. And let us know in the comments, what part of this story surprised you the most?